teacher pay was so low in 1919, the Free Press editorialized about starvation wages. Common Council voted a $300 teacher bonus, but Mayor James Couzens vetoed, suggesting that teachers augment their income by moonlighting as telephone operators. Many Detroit teachers were enraged.
Meanwhile, the American Federation of Teachers was organizing across the nation, and one organizer landed in Detroit. As you can imagine, he found an interested audience. Some of the teachers joined the AFT as a strategy to get higher wages, but unions were considered radical in 1919.
The Free Press supported school administrators, saying teachers would gain nothing by class entanglement. Under pressure and after a stormy battle with the school board, the teachers gave in and disbanded the union. The famous Diego Rivera murals, a portrait of a multinational workforce working in harmony. But as these murals were being painted during the Great Depression, Detroit's Mexican population was being pressured by social workers and the immigration office to return to Mexico. Ironically, the artist himself spent his compensation for the frescoes to charter coaches and provide food for those who chose to repatriate. Jose Alfaro was Diego Rivera's friend.
A train left to Mexico every week. And Rivera, he used to go himself and inspect the coaches. And he picked up someone and handed him a $100 bill and said to him, you take care of the children especially and the ladies until they get to Mexico. So I believe he was a great man.
This is Woodmere Cemetery, across the road from the giant Ford Rouge plant. In 1932, during the worst of the Depression, Henry Ford said, anyone that wants work can find work. So the unemployed marched, and the Ford goons and the Dearborn police threw tear gas at the crowd and opened fire. 5 men died. 4 of the 5 are buried at Woodmere. David Moore was one of the marchers.
There should be a 5th grave for a black marcher who died, but because he was black, he couldn't be buried at Woodmere. The relatives of the dead insisted that they be buried as close to the destination of the Hunger March as possible. And the black martyr should really be here with them because the tragedy of these deaths created a bond of black and white unity that has gone unbroken to this day.
This is Kelsey Hayes, where the 10-day historic sit-down strike occurred in 1936. Worse than the low wages was the terrible speed-up and the fear of being discharged. A woman working next to me had fainted, and the whole department was in an uproar because of that. And Walter, who was the union organizer, met with a few in secret, and he said to this woman, look, I want you to faint again, but on schedule. And on December the 10th, before the change of shifts, she fainted. And I reached over and pulled the switch, and we were on strike. And for 10 days we struck, and on Christmas Eve settled the strike, winning a 75-cent minimum wage, recognition of the union, and a shop steward system. And the UAW was on its way.
In the In the 1930s, 60% of the population of Detroit was foreign-born or had foreign-born parents. A key organizing strategy of the UAW was to approach workers as members of ethnic groups. Stanley Novak was in charge of organizing Polish workers. He spoke in parks, outside churches. He had a radio program in Polish, and he often spoke in neighborhood ethnic halls, like this one, known as Martin's Hall.
In this hall, from this very platform, I spoke many times, together with Walter Reuther, Dave Miller, and Dick Frankenstein. Ethnic halls were the only halls available to us.
So, as a result, the ethnic halls provided the base for organizing the UAW. Everyone associates Detroit with the automobile, but few realize that Detroit was once a cigar capital of the United States.
Women were cramped into small, smelly cigar factories all over the east side. It was hot. We couldn't open the windows. We worked 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. We worked piecework. We couldn't get up to go to the lavatory because we were afraid to lose a couple cigars.
In 1937, the cigar workers struck, grinding production to a halt. After 6 weeks, the companies finally agreed to demands for higher pay and a shorter work week. But within 2 years, the women were again off the job. This time because the cigar companies had moved south, where labor was cheaper.
It took a lot of courage when the Reverend Charles A. Hill stood up for the UAW back in the late 30s and early 40s. The whole community was largely controlled by the Ford Motor Company through the various ministers and priests. The company not only gave generously to various churches that were supportive of the company, but also issued to the priests and preachers letters that would guarantee employment at Ford when Ford was hiring. Some of the lesser priests and preachers sold these letters. Others used them to abet their influence. And so it was very, very clear that standing up for the union did take a lot of courage, and Reverend Hill displayed that courage and that leadership back in those early days.
In the 1930s, Detroit's working people shopped at Sam's. Sam's catered to workers with dungarees, overalls, and household goods, and during strikes by extending credit and filling prescriptions free of charge. In the 1950s, at the request of the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers, Sam's promoted Union steward Joel Mays to the rank of salesman. He was the first black salesman in the city of Detroit.
I was hired in Sam's in maintenance in 1937. And in 52, personnel called me in and asked me if I would like to go in sales. I said I'd be glad to try it. So I tried it. The management called me in, the owner called me in and asked me how was I doing. I said, I'm doing fine. He said, well, don't you worry about a thing. You'll be in there to stay.
For over a century, printing technology remained basically the same. Metal type was composed into blocks and imprinted on metal plates. The type was set a line at a time on this machine, the linotype.
Through the late 1960s, this was the type of machine I operated at the Detroit News. They had over 80 of these machines, and its function was to set all the advertising and editorial content for that day's paper. This is the type of equipment that is now being used by the printers in the new processes. We knew it was coming, but it came at a very rapid pace. But through collective bargaining between the employer and the union, we were able to negotiate lifetime jobs for all the printers involved.
High technology is increasingly a factor in labor management debates, but at least for some newspaper printers in Detroit, the debate was resolved favorably. A craft has been lost, but not the jobs of the workers who practiced it. Labor Day, September 1981. Last year, the Labor Day parade returned to downtown Detroit to protest good times gone bad. Decades ago, these rallies were commonplace. Thousands of workers packed Cadillac Square in the 1930s, defending their right to bargain collectively, demanding recognition of their union, better wages, and better working conditions. Later, demonstrations called for equal treatment of black workers, and traditionally, Detroit unions kicked off the national campaigns of labor-backed presidential candidates with a massive rally in Cadillac Square.
I think this demonstrates that the thousands of people who gathered here in the mid-30s on through to the 60s gathered to tell the rest of America that they wanted a better life. I think these days are coming back again.